All right, I'm finally getting myself ready here. All right, good morning, gentlemen. All right, welcome to another Bloodhound workshop. And let me see who's in the room. Um, Boy, yeah, Zoom's kind of funny. I see three Bobs in the room. That's odd how Zoom does that to people. Let's see here. Anyways, checking for any names I don't recognize. Actually, yes, I do see a name, maybe two names I don't recognize. So let me ask if there's anybody new in the workshop today or anybody who's fairly new to these workshops here. And if so, my question is, would you like to hear the workshop introduction? All right, so for the new people, the workshop introduction is where I'll explain what we do in these workshops and more importantly, what we do not do in these workshops. And then secondly, I'll explain how the recordings work. So if you ask a question, you'll know how soon you can get a recording of that so you can watch it later. And then lastly, the third thing I'll do is I'll explain what custom indicators I can install into my machine in case you do have a question about using a custom indicator with Bloodhound here. So, all right, so if anybody would like to hear that workshop introduction, let me know. And I'd like to get that out of the way first. And let's see here. All right, so yeah, moving on. There were no emailed in questions to get today's workshop started. So gentlemen, that means I'm leaving it up to you guys to start asking your questions and get things started for today. And yeah, good afternoon, RJ. I guess technically, yeah, it's a couple minutes into the afternoon, isn't it? Haven't seen you on in a while, so welcome back. And hopefully you have some questions for me. And let's see here. Well, we had some people in and then they dropped out. I guess they probably figured this was a trade room. And clearly it's not. So, let's see. Hi, Ken. Yep, I can read your responses there. So, all right, this is Ken's first time. All right, well, welcome. So, yeah, so Ken, if you'd like to hear the workshop introduction, let me know, and I'll get that done for you. Yeah, RJ's genius. Yeah, genius is relative, right? Just like a lot of things or everything, pretty much. Let's see here. All right, let me kind of clear out the Q&A window here. Let's see. All right. Ken's good, so he doesn't need to hear the workshop introduction. All right. Well, Ken, if you want to run the show today, go ahead. And by that, I mean ask all the Bloodhound questions you want. So that's exactly what these workshops are for, to get all those questions answered and taken care of. And let's see. And so there are a bunch of regulars in the room. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, gentlemen, I'm basically out of anything else to kind of say. I've just been kind of stalling, waiting for the first question to come in here. So, all right. So, yeah, Val is new as well. All right, Val. Yeah, I didn't recognize your name. And you would like a restatement of what to do. I don't understand what you mean, a restatement of what to do. What to do with what? Um, so just to be clear, Val, we don't provide trading advice. So Shark Indicators, we're not trading coaches, right? We're a software company here. So, yeah, so Val, if you could kind of be a little more specific and yeah, restate your question there. I'll get you an answer as best I can. And let's see here. All right, looks like Ken has a programming question for me. All right, so let me kind of clean up here. Yeah, okay, so Ken is on the demo. And yeah, I guess, you know what, since I'm just really kind of, I mean, Ken, I'll get to your question in a minute here, but I don't see any real in-depth questions yet. But just since there are a couple of new people here, let me just point you to, so for anybody else that might be on the demo, I'll point you to the web page that explains how the demo works, right? So, such as what are the restrictions of the demo, right? So if you go to support and then just go to documentation, this is basically a launching point from all the other places on the website here, right? So you can see, you know, the button buttons. Anyways, if you scroll down to other pages, and let's see, there you go. I'm always looking for trial over here, but it starts off with 30-day trial. There we go. So you can go to the 30-day trial right there. And so this explains, you know, what's the full trial versus what's the restricted trial there, all right, for both Bloodhound and Blackbird there, right? So there's an explanation of how the trial period works there for anybody there. So, and let's see here. All right, yeah. So Ken's looking into the VPS. Yeah. So just so you know, I'm not the sales guy, so I don't have a lot of specific answers for any sales related questions. You know, so for sales related questions, again, your best thing is you just email support, or we also do have a sales at Shark Indicators. But really every sales gets funneled into support. So everything goes into support. So it's best just to use support for everything there. So, all right, let me clear that out of the way. And all right, so let's get the first question here out of the way here. All right, so Ken is trying to do a comparison here. Yeah, so checking to see if the current swing high is greater than the swing high of the previous swing high back. Yeah, and same thing, and is the swing low greater than, so is there a higher high and a higher low? All right, yeah. So, all right, that'll be our first question here. So let's see, what am I on? 1 minute chart here. All right. So let's get a swing indicator on here. And I guess really the question is, Ken, which swing indicator are you using? Let's see, yeah. All right, yeah, there's a lot coming in from different people right now. So All right, so yeah, I'm just reading up on Ken's comments here. All right, so Ken's trying to trade an Al Brooks signal there. Yeah, again, just so you know, we're not trading coaches. So while I am familiar with a lot of concepts, I don't know all of Al Brooks's, and I definitely don't know his stuff by name anymore. So I'm not a student of Al Brooks. Yeah. All right. Well, so the basic answer to Ken's question here. And let's pull it up on Notepad here so we can all read it. All right. So we're trying to figure out, right, is the swing high, the current swing high greater than the swing high, the prior swing high? And is the swing low greater than the prior swing low? So higher high, higher low there. So, yeah, there's a couple of ways to tackle this. So basically, here's the key. Is something greater than something else, right? Is input A greater than input B, right? And we got two of these here. So let me put on Ninja's swing indicator. And I went too far. There we go. All right, we'll put on Ninja's swing indicator, and there we go. I'll just leave it at 5. Call it good. All right. So now let's get Bloodhound open here. All right. So when you open up Bloodhound for the first time, if you see it says, right, it's going to be unnamed. So the first thing you want to do is click on the Save button there and put in a file name so that your work is saved back to a file. All right, so let's put in today's date. There we go. All right, so now, every question answered here will be saved to this Bloodhound file. All right, so again, getting back to this, checking if, some indicator is greater than some other indicator plot there, right? And that is exactly what the comparison is doing, right? So you're comparing input A to input B there. All right, so we have input A and input B. And if we look at the rules window there, so if we click on the ellipses button there, that opens up the rules window. And just give it a moment. For the very first time, it takes a moment for the window to build there. But you can see right here, right? So we have those comparison symbols there, right? That comparison logic there. So you can do greater than, less than, whatever it is you're trying to do, right? And so input A is the first input over here. That's why it says A. So because this is input A and this is input B, right? And the default, right, is the SMA. So you got to have some kind of default indicator in there, right? So what you need to do is just plug in your swing indicator in there. And so here's the key. So let's plug in the swing indicator here. Right, use the little search. There we go. There's the swing indicator, 5. All right. And so we notice with Ninja's swing indicator, right? You have swing high, swing low, and then you have the same thing here. This data series of swing high and swing low. So, and let's see here. All right, so we need the highs to swing step higher and the lows to step higher. So let's see. Yeah, so in this case, yeah, we're going to use the swing high for both longs and shorts. Yeah, so it looks like this would be a case for a long setup, right, or a buy setup there. And then input B, so we want this to be input B. So if we open up this swing and swing, now unfortunately with NinjaTrader's swing indicator, there is no way to get access to the prior swing. So I kind of took the long road to get there, but I just wanted to impress upon you that when you're trying to do these kind of things, the indicator has to be written correctly so that you can achieve some of those custom things you're trying to do there. All right. So so unfortunately with Ninja's swing indicator, you can't actually do that, right? So if I just, if I click OK, we're not going to get any answers here. Well, actually, let's connect that up. And also, let's do a displacement, right? Now, this displacement here, this is Ninja's displacement. So this is different than this programming of one look back, right? A look back. So now we do get answers, and yeah, we will get an answer. So, for example, we have the highs stepping down, right? So this swing high is lower than the prior swing high, right? So, and if we look at the rules window here, right? So this is the current bar, and if it's less than one bar back, right, then output is short, right? Output is short if that condition is true. And so as the swing high steps down, but the problem is when the swing highs step up, right, Ninja's swing indicator stops plotting. So there's no plot to read. There actually is a value there, which is another kind of a problem there. There is a value there, but it's not a swing high value, right? Let's see here. Let's see if we can kind of figure out what value is actually in that swing indicator. Yeah, we're stepping up. Yeah, so I think what we're seeing here is Ninja's swing indicator. What it's providing back to Bloodhound is the closing price of this bar, which is higher, right, than the swing of one bar back. And then we get a close down. Looks like it closed down one tick a little bit lower there. All right. Actually, hold on. Let me. Let's turn off the auto scaling. There we go. There. Yeah. So basically, if we look at this, the swing indicator is now just giving us the closing price of the bars. Right. So a bit problematic there. So again, the point I'm trying to illustrate is, your indicator has to be set up correctly to provide an output, a correct output all the time. But Ninja's swing indicator doesn't do that. It's only designed for just visual representation on the chart, not for programming a system, right? So if you tried to use Ninja's swing indicator within Ninja's strategy builder, you can't do that, right? That's big problem there. So all right, so let me show something else here. So now, if we go into Shark indicators, we do have a swing indicator here that was actually a stripped down model. It's a stripped down model of the price action swing indicator, right? So this indicator here is, what is it? It might be on NinjaTrader's user app share, and it's definitely on Big Mike's there, right? So yeah, one of the downloads there on Big Mike's, and again, it might be on the NinjaTrader's user app share there, but all this is just a stripped down version of that there. So let's add that to the chart, and let's see here. I'm going to knock the number of swings just down to 2 there. And let's knock the swing down, the swing strength down a little bit. There we go. Okay, there, good. Now we have some more swing points here to work with. All right. So this swing indicator, as we can see, it doesn't stop plotting like Ninja swing indicator. So yeah, so this custom one, this third party one here is a little, a little better in that it's built for, building a system, for programming there. So with this, we can actually go in here and now let's replace the Ninja swing indicator with the other one. All right, so we'll plug in that one. And again, let's go in and adjust the settings so it matches everything on the chart. Right, that's the number one mistake here is, Bloodhound users forget to adjust the indicator in Bloodhound to use the exact same settings as what's on the chart. And then there's an obvious difference. The results you're getting from Bloodhound obviously disagree. At some point, they'll disagree with the indicators on the chart. And that's because you're using different indicator settings within Bloodhound. So always be mindful of that, right? If you see a disagreement between, Bloodhound's output and your indicators on the chart, 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time, it's going to be because your settings are different there. So yeah, be very mindful of that. All right, so let's see here. So the green and red lines, those are the whitest tops here. So let's select that. And we'll do the same thing for input B there. Go in, adjust the settings like so. And there we go. And all right. And it's always good to name your nodes here. Put some kind of description in there that gives you a hint as to what it's doing there. All right. So now if we go to the chart, here we go. We can see when the swing high is stepping down. There, swing high is stepping down, swing highs. And then when the swing high is stepping up as well. All right. Here. All right, so that's the swing high right there. So now we're going to make a copy of this, paste a new one down here, and adjust this one. We're going to adjust this second one here to look at the swing low. So let me just adjust the name there. All right, so now we go into both of the inputs here. Let's go into input A, and this time we're going to use the widest bottoms, right, which is the red plot line there. So the tightest tops and the tightest bottoms, those plots are turned off here. So those are invisible. So we're not actually seeing those on the chart there. And so for input B, same thing. Let's go into this swing, and again, select the widest bottoms, right? And there we go. So now if let's see, yeah, we got some odd behavior here. Yeah, let me do a reload on the chart here. And let me just check if I have, there we go. There's my problem. I've got two swing indicators on the chart. No wonder. All right, let's remove that one, and we're going to keep the one that has number of swings 2, swing strength 5, right? Because that's what I'm using in Bloodhound. Okay, there we go. That cleaned that up. All right, so again, looking at the swing lows here. So when the swing lows are stepping down, again, we get a short. And then when the swing lows step higher, right, we now get a long output. Steps higher, steps higher. There we go. All right. So now, going back to the question, we're looking for both of these to be true at the same time. So now we can see, right, the swing lows and the swing highs are obviously stepping down or stepping up at on different bars, right? They're not in sync. So if we did something like this, where if we just took an AND node to make sure they're both true at the same time, right, we get nothing because they don't step up or step down together. So what we can do, actually, let's zoom out a little bit. Disconnect that. So what we can do is we can use a toggle node. Connect that in there. Connect that to the AND node. And this toggle node, right, its default settings here, the default settings, as we can see, and again, I have let me zoom in here a moment. Right, so I'm plugged in to the comparison solver that's looking at the swing high, right? So we can see when this swing high steps down, right, a short, it holds on to that short output. Right, we see that short output stays on until the swing high steps up. So, right, swing high steps down, swing high steps down, we get a short output. So whatever the last stepping direction is, right, the toggle node is holding on to that state. So we're going to do the same thing again here. Let's go and add another toggle node, connect that in like so. So this is for the swing lows. So again, swing lows are stepping down, right? And then the swing low steps up, and then we get a long output. So now that we have these, continuous long and short outputs, now we can combine that together into an AND node. And there we have it. All right. So now we can see the swing highs step down, and we can see the swing lows step down there a little bit. I guess let's zoom this out a little bit. There we go. Right, so the swing lows already stepped down, but the swing highs, the prior was a step up. But as soon as the swing high stepped down, right, so we had a swing low step down earlier, and then once the second, right, once the other part of this condition, the swing high stepping down, then we get a short output, right? Stay short, stay short. Until, yeah, look at that. We had a tiny, like a 1 or 2 tick step up on the swing high right there. Yeah, kind of a weird, yeah, looks like that bar, you know, stepped up a little bit. Anyways, so both of these conditions, right, broke here. So the swing high stepped up, and so now there's no confluence between the two. And then once the swing high steps down, and we can see, right, the swing lows have been stepping down, and now we have a short output again, indicating a short output there. All right. So, yeah. So there is that. So that's actually looking at, right, those swing highs and swing lows, you know, in sync there, stepping up together or stepping down together. Now, alternatively, let me grab a threshold solver here. We'll connect this in. Now, alternatively, we have also a swing trend. Basically, this is a zigzag indicator here, right? So the swing highs is based on the swing trend, right? So the swing trend is what actually identifies the high and low points there. And if we go into the swing trend, and again, let me reduce the swing strength down to 5, and then you'll notice the swing trend has a lot of outputs here. There's all kinds of things identified, identified by the indicator here. But the one we're looking for is, let's see, here we go. Yeah, I think the higher high, higher low trend. And let's see. All right, there's a little difference here. Oh, actually, yeah, actually, it is a little different. Yeah, it is. It is going to be a little different here. Yeah, let's check the quick trend output here. And no, yeah, it's not the quick trend. All right. Yeah, so I'm just looking here, trying to see if I can figure out the logic here. But instead of figuring out the logic here, let's actually go to, let's check out the documentation here. So, all right. So let's go to support documentation. There we go. And then go to other indicators, right? So this will take you to the documentation page for all these various free indicators here. And we want the swing trend and swing high. So let's go there. Let's see, the swing highs and lows. Actually, I should have clicked on the swing trend. There we go. So the swing trend is, right, they're both on the same page here. So the swing trend is first. And if we scroll down, here are the outputs here. So there's an explanation of all the different outputs. And let's see here. All right, yeah, so I guess this might be the difference here. Yeah, so we are looking for a higher high, as the name implies, and a higher low is confirmed. So that higher low has to be locked in. Yeah, so I guess that's the subtle difference here. This is looking for, a higher low, which, well, this is doing the same thing, just a little differently. Yeah, so using the swing trend, right? The swing trend is actually a little quicker to respond. So if we analyze, why did the short stop here, right? So we still have a low stepping lower right here, right? The high stepped lower and the low stepped lower. But as soon as price broke the swing high, we know a new higher high is developing. So, as soon as price breaks the swing high, a new higher high is developing. And so that higher high, higher low, or that lower low, lower high, right? So right now we're in a lower low, lower high. That came to an end as soon as the swing high was broken. This is just the swing trend is just a little quicker to respond here. There we go. All right. Let's see here. Oh, all right. Yeah. So, if you're playing around with swing points and stuff like that, I guess I'll kind of conclude this question here with just mentioning here that yeah, you'll definitely want to take a look at the documentation and take a look at the different trends here that are included with the swing trend indicator here, right? Take a look at the different outputs that the swing trend has built into it. All right. And again, that is on the swing trend and swing highs and lows documentation page there, right? All right, so let me let me pause it right there and see if there's any follow-up questions on this. And but also there. All right, there we go. I think that's a pretty good name for this logic board here. All right, yeah, so let me kind of pause it right there. And let's see, this was from Ken. Let's see. Let's see. All right. So, yeah, reading on Ken's follow-ups here. All right. So, unfortunately, yeah, it sounds like the indicator that Ken is using doesn't have the proper outputs. Similar, probably the same kind of problem as what I demonstrated with the built-in NinjaTrader swing indicator, right? Probably has the same kind of problem there. Yep. uh, yeah, interesting. So Ken tried to chat GPT the solution, and AI isn't quite there yet. It seems really good. It gets you like maybe 95% there, but it's always the last 5%, where things fall apart. So yeah, it looks like ChatGPT was close, but it forgot to include the toggle nodes as I explained here. So yeah, there we go. So yeah, so at least it got you started there in the right direction using comparison solvers. The first one looks at the swing highs, and the second one looks at the swing lows. Yep. So it got you there. All right, let me kind of clear this out. So all right. So I'm just going through all of Ken's comments here. Yeah, so good. So Ken, it sounds like Keith kind of walked you through the process of testing an indicator to see if it's written correctly for, systematic development. And yeah, there are a fair amount of indicators, that where I wouldn't say this is a common problem, but it's common enough where vendors only code their indicators so that they look good on the chart, and they don't take the extra effort to code their indicators so that they're usable in a systematic development. Such as, again, the classic example is Ninja swing indicator versus this price action swing indicator, right? I'm sorry, the swing highs and lows indicator, right? Just the simple fact of always plotting the swing high no matter what happens, and always plotting the swing low no matter what happens makes a big difference when you're doing systematic development there, versus cutting a plot off and then you get wrong data out of that indicator. So, let's see here. All right. Okay, yeah. So, all right. So here's a question. Yeah. So Ken's asking, is there a substitute way to do this with Shark? So I think this is your answer here. Now, as far as how the specific rules of Albrook's, again, I don't know that. You would have to provide me those rules, those instructions. And also just another side note here, so for anybody, obviously, I think most people in here are trying to build a system here. So I'm going to use Ken as an example here, right? He's trying to develop, right, an Albrook's signal here. And I just mentioned, well, you need to kind of send me the specifics of what the conditions are, for this. Shoot, I just lost the name of that signal. Yeah, this Albrook's secondary method signal here. Anyways, my point is, don't send me like a one-page documentation. All right, we are not trading coaches. We don't read other people's documentation for you. We're not your interpreters. So when you send, a request to build something in these workshops, you need to actually break it down into the individual conditions that need to occur, for a long signal and a short signal. So yeah, so just be mindful of that. Don't just send us somebody's 2-page documentation. We're not going to read it. That's not what we're here for. We're not, again, we're not your interpretation service. So you have to understand and just give us the bullet points, the actual conditions of what's needed. And what Ken gave me before was perfect. Like this right here, this is all that's needed to build something in Bloodhound, right? I didn't need, the half a page documentation that explains the theory and all that stuff. So, so please just kind of cut down your questions, down to what is the bare minimum needed to generate a signal. So, there. All right. So, let's see here. All right. So just continuing to go through all these comments here. let's see. Yeah, here we go. So Ken's asking, can the indicator work using calculate on price change or on each tick? I believe so. I believe so. Yeah, I'm just pausing for a moment. Yeah, I know it does, but I guess, again, details matter here. The ultimate answer is you'll have to do your own testing, right? So once you go from calculate on bar close to calculate, on price change or on each tick, yeah, there could be subtle little nuances or issues with every indicator out there. So nobody can really give you an answer on that. I mean, I could just say yes, and then you find some weird little quirk where it doesn't work. So the base answer is yes, it does. But for what you're doing, you might find as you run it in real time for a couple of days, there might be some weird little quirk about that. So yeah. So definitely do lots of thorough testing on live markets, or use the Market Ninja's playback connection. Yeah. So all right. All right, looks like I got through all of Ken's comments and questions there, and I got my Q&A window cleaned up a little bit. So, okay, yeah, so I think we're done with this question here. So, yeah. All right, let me move on to Val's question. Looks like Val got back to me. Oh, okay. All right. So, yeah, Val is just kind of, I guess asking, what these workshops are for here. So I'll just kind of do the first part of the workshop introduction here, as I was asking if anybody wanted to hear that in the beginning. So in these workshops here, these workshops are here. So this is the page where you guys signed up for these workshops here. And as this explains, these workshops here are to help you learn Bloodhound, plain and simple, to help you learn Bloodhound. I've already mentioned, kind of answering some questions earlier, that we are not trading coaches at Shark Indicators. So we don't provide trading advice. Like I think a classic example of a question I might get once in a while is, hey, what's the best system you've had in the workshops? We don't do that. So, okay, we don't evaluate systems. We don't backtest systems. Sometimes I'll get asked, what's the best moving average to identify the trend? What's the best moving average in period? Again, we're not trading coaches. We don't provide that information there. So, but if you know what moving average you want to use and some other conditions, then that's when I'm here. So once you know exactly what you want to do, what conditions you're looking for, I'm here to help you convert those conditions into Bloodhound. All right. For example, what node should you be using to identify some kind of condition, right? And then show you how to build it up. And sometimes you need some extra help, like these toggle nodes here, So I guess, the bottom line, once you know exactly what conditions, what your trading rules are, then you can provide those. You can either email those in, email that in anytime during the week, just say, hey, can you build these trading rules, in the next workshop there? And I'll get that done for you. Okay, so there you go. I think that hopefully that's clear enough there for Val and everybody else. And all right, second question from Val. He's interested, in getting some private training. So again, when you pay for the private training, again, we're not trading coaches, so we're just here to help you take your idea and convert it into Bloodhound. So anyways, just email support there, and Mike will email you back all the details on that. So just email support, just mention you'd like to get the hourly training, and Mike will email you back. All right, so there's another question from Val. And you're welcome, Ken. Absolutely. So it gets really boring in these workshops when I don't have any questions to do. So I'm having a lot more fun when questions come in and I get to build something and answer questions and stuff. So yeah. All right, Charles is up. All right, Charles. Yeah, I think it's been a couple of weeks since you've had a question. Let's see what you got. He believes you're going to provide a brief overview of what, okay. All right, thank you, Charles. Yeah. Let's see, a brief overview of what Bloodhound does. So I think the simplest way to answer, what does Bloodhound do? How does Bloodhound work is, as this simple kind of condition explained, Bloodhound primarily looks for indicator conditions. Which obviously that's an extremely broad term. So let's kind of break it down. But it's not only indicator conditions, but I'm going to just start with indicator conditions, right? Because that's what most trading systems, almost all trading systems, use indicators, and look for different conditions coming from those indicators. So the most common condition is a comparison. And on a chart, you don't really compare left to right. I mean, you do in a way, but really what you're comparing is one thing above or below the other thing, right? Above or below comparison. It's done constantly here. So that's what the comparison solver does, is something above or below something else. So this right here is the workhorse. This guy gets used at least 80% of the time on average, with any kind of system that you might build, right? Everybody knows what a crossover condition is. No explanation needed there, right? Could be anything. It could be the MACD crossing the zero line. It could be the ADX crossing above 20 or the RSI crossing 50, right? Crossover. Two moving averages crossing over. It's pretty self-explanatory. What's another charting condition? Is, did a moving average change directions, right? Did it inflect, right? An inflection on a chart is something going up and then reversing down, right? That up to down, that's an inflection point. or down to up, right? Slope, pretty simple, right? Is your indicator sloping up or is it sloping down? And then threshold, right? The threshold solver primarily is used for something like the MACD or the stochastics or the RSI, right? All those indicators that run in their own sub panel, right? They don't run on the price, they run, in some other panel, right? That's what the threshold solver is primarily built for. So you can identify, is your stochastic overbought or oversold, right? Is your RSI overbought, oversold? CCI, right? Is your MACD above or below zero? So on and so forth, et cetera, et cetera. Right, so those are your most common conditions there, right? And that's what Bloodhound's helping you do, right? Now there's, some other ones here, like the regression channel, right? That is a unique indicator. And so if you're using that one, it actually had to have its own solver there. So you can identify, where is price positioned inside of that channel, so so there are some other unique ones here. Expansion, contraction. This is actually, I think, the most recent, the newest of all the solvers here. And this one really only gets used with the Bollinger Band or moving averages. That's the most common questions I've had so far. Is the Bollinger Bands expanding or contracting, or are two different moving averages expanding or contracting, right? Pretty self-explanatory there. So now let's go over some of the non-indicator conditions that you can use with Bloodhound. So the bar direction, right? That's not a bar direction is not an indicator, right? That's just comparing price, right? Is the closing price above or below the open price? Bar direction, pretty straightforward there. So what this kind of illustrates is with Bloodhound, you can also analyze what is price doing, right? So so looking at all these solvers, let's look at the comparison solver again, right? So looking at the comparison solver, you can change the type. So for the inputs to any solver here, right? If a solver has inputs, you can change the type from indicator to price. And that way you can compare prices to an indicator, right? So is the closing price, let's connect that in. So here we have, is the closing price above or below the SMA 14, right? We don't have the SMA 14 on here, but we can see out right here is where, right, the closing price crossed above the SMA 14. And now we can see the SMA 14 is roughly somewhere around here, and price is chopping up and down on top of that SMA 14, right? So you can incorporate bar prices, with all of these kind of basic conditions. Same thing with the inflection. You can check to see if the closing price reversed up or down. So let's switch that to price, and yeah, right. So here we go, right? So the closing price was rising, and then it reversed down, and the closing price has been going down, right? There's the close, and then we got an up bar, so the closing price reversed up, right? Yeah. So you can mix and match and incorporate bar prices, with indicators as well. So, yeah. There, clear that out. Also, a, a, a good practice is never leave unused solvers in your board. So they are doing work. They are being calculated, right? The only way Bloodhound can give you instant feedback is every node has to be calculated. So as soon as I connect that up, boom, this node was always being calculated and I just had to connect it up, and then Bloodhound can say, here's the results. So unused nodes are wasting your CPU resources there. So yeah, so keep your list of solvers here lean and clean. Now, of course, there might be a few nodes where you're like, yeah, I'm probably going to use this. I want to keep it around. You know, that's fine. But, you know, if you're just testing something, checking something out, and then you know you don't need it anymore, just get rid of it. Yeah. So, let's see. All right. So there, I think that kind of gives a broad and somewhat brief overview of you know what Bloodhound does, you know, and kind of what the solvers do there. You know, again, if you like reading documentation there, you can once again go to support. Actually, here, let me use this tab right here. You can go to support and just go to documentation and then click on Bloodhound. Actually, don't really need to click on Bloodhound, but just go to the side menu here, and here you go. So here's an introduction to how Bloodhound works, the technical properties there. All right, there's a page on the interface, right? This is the interface right here. But here's where I really wanted to get to is the solvers, right? The list of solvers. So, right, this explains what the solvers do. Yeah, so here's all the different solvers. And so you can open it up, and there's just a short, brief explanation there of what each solver does. Right. Yeah. So yeah, if you're kind of curious, you know, what does a solver do? There you go. There's a brief summary, but better yet, you can see here is all the solvers listed right here. So if you're wondering what's the difference between change in slope versus the slope, well, there you go. Let's go to the change in slope page, and there you go. There's an explanation of it. So, right. So, and there's even a little image here, a little graphic to help explain how all the different outputs work for the change in slope there. Right. Yeah. All right, so I think that's good for now. Looks like Randy has a question here. Okay, yeah. So Randy is wanting an explanation here again of what's the difference between a inverted node versus a swapped node. Yeah. Let's see here. So let's go to, I guess it doesn't matter. We can go to bar direction, and so you can see right here, modifiers. All right, so how do you know to go to modifiers? Well, let's open up Bloodhound, and let's put a bar direction. Actually, I don't need that. Let's undo that. There. So if we look at any of these nodes here that we already have, here we go. I think I need a better mouse pad. It's so hard to get my mouse right on the right spot. So if you look at any of these nodes, right, let's see here. Oh, I'm on, yeah, wrong page. There we go. So, sorry. Yeah. So you have modifiers here. And this, still kind of trips me up here every once in a while. You'll notice we have modifiers when you actually click on a node. But if you click on the node in the solvers panel here, there is no modifier, right? Because you can't, modifiers only apply to the individual nodes. So, for example, right, let's drag this node on here twice, right? So I have this node on here 3 times, right? This is 1, 2, 3. All the same node, this same node here. But these modifiers only apply to the individual node. So that way you can have 2 nodes. One you might need to invert, and the other one you don't, you want to keep it regular here. So we can invert it. I can click on the other one, and then I can swap this one. So anyways, so when you click on a node, we have modifier section and then global properties. And so if you go to the documentation of any node, you'll see it says modifiers and global properties. So modifiers, let's open that up. And there's the invert button. Right. So the invert does exactly that. It inverts everything. Whereas swap, I think most people would say swap reverses the direction of the output. So for example here, I'm going to go to this tab here, and I'll add that bar direction back again. It keeps getting deleted and added and deleted. All right, so bar direction, right? No modifiers are on. All the modifiers are off. So pretty simple, right? Down bars give you a short, long bars give you a long output. So if we swap this, essentially reversing the direction. So now down bars give you a long output. So it reverses the direction. Invert, let's see here. Invert, to illustrate that, let's do this. Let's do a number of bars 4. All right. So we only get an output when there's 4 bars in a row of the same direction, right? So first down bar, second one, third, fourth one, and so forth. So if we invert this, right, keep a note, right, we have a short output there, short output there, nothing in the middle. So if you invert it, some people might call this reversing the output. So that's why we don't use the word reverse. how do you know what you mean by reverse? So we use the word swapping the outputs versus inverting. And actually, technically, invert is the correct terminology for this in a technical sense. Yeah, so this actually is not reversing the output. It's a technical invert. So, yeah. And so there you go. You can see now it's the complete opposite of what? So invert, right? Right now it's inverted, and we have the complete opposite. So now there's no short, but everything else is on, right? The long is on, shorts are on, right? So that's an invert there. Whereas a swap, bingo, there we go, right? Long, long, long. So, yeah. So, and again, I don't want you guys to get hung up and have to wait a whole week to get a question answered. So you can just remember, every solver here, every solver, they all have this properties tab, and they all have this modifier section there. So that way you can, remind yourself what's an invert versus what's a swap there. And just remember, you just have to click it open there to reveal it there. There. All right, so that should take care of Randy's question. All right, looks like Doug is up next. Yeah. Doug, I don't think you had any questions for quite some time either. All right, let's see what's cooking. All right, so yeah, so Doug's question is really kind of a clerical file management question here about naming conventions here when you're working on different iterations of a system. I always keep things simple. I just will go version 1, version 2, and sometimes I'll go version, like if I'm tweaking an indicator, if it's a real minor tweak, I'll say version 1.1, or version 1.2. Just keep it kind of simple. Let's see if we have anything here in the list of Bloodhound files. All right, so let's open up NinjaTrader. And let's go to templates. Excuse me. Went to the Bloodhound directory. Let's see here. Let's sort by name. Here's another way to do it. Date. But when you're iterating, date. I don't know. To me, the the date can be handy to have sometimes, but it doesn't tell me what iteration it is. You know, is this version 3 or is this version 4? So I still like to just stick with the basics. Just put V1, you know, V1.1, and if you make a big enough change, then I'll step it up to V2, you know, version 2, and then go from, you know, version 2.1, so on and so forth. You know, and if I'm making a bunch of rapid changes, sometimes I'll even go like version 1 or version 2.1A and then version 2.1B. That's if I need to make some kind of micro step and I'm afraid this micro step is really going to break something, then I might start putting an A and B after it. Kind of like just using bullet point notations. You know, that's how I kind of do my numbering here. Let's see if it. Nah. Bullet typography. No. There we go. Let's see if we have a good example. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, none of these examples are yeah, you know, AI and Google is only as good as the instructions you can give it, right? Geez, I'm not seeing a good example, but you know how bullet points, if they're numbered like this, they'll step in and they'll go like 1, and then they might go 1.1, and then sometimes they might go 1.1 point A, you know, so on and so forth. So, yeah, so that's basically it in a nutshell there, Doug, is, you know, I'll just put version whatever and just start incrementing stuff there. But also just remember when you go into the templates directory, you do have all these backups from after you run an update. When you run the latest installer, it does make a backup there, and so you can see the date of when that backup was made. So that's obviously that's not a naming convention thing, but you know, just a little extra there to be mindful of. Yeah, I'm not going to have any examples on this machine here of naming version number, versioning, yeah, versioning a file name, but yeah, pretty straightforward, I think. So yeah, I try and keep it as simple as possible. Otherwise, if I've noticed if I make up some kind of complex concept, you know, I might use it for one project, And if I come back to it a year or two later, if it's too complex, I'm like not remembering exactly what what the various rules were in creating a complex um, organization. You know, so yeah. So for that reason, I try and keep everything really simple as I can. So and keep in mind you can use re- fairly long file names. Um, the limitation is Windows, right? So Windows does have a limit of the entire string. So be mindful the the directory part of the string plus the file name I think needs to be less than 255. Although actually I think with Windows 10 and 11 with Windows 64-bit, actually I think that length um, is much longer now. But yeah, but in most situations, this um, this directory name or this directory, the length of characters, the number of characters, that's fixed, and there's plenty left over, where you can probably still create easily a 250 character name in there. So you can get really complex with your naming, if that helps you. I mean, I know it helps me. Like, look at some of these Bloodhound file names here. Again, I do have a naming convention here that's pretty basic, but with Bloodhound or Blackbird, sorry, trying to put in, um, there we go, right? So I have entry, and then I'll try and list all the different entry orders, and then I'll put profit target, and then try and list all the different profit targets, right? So if this file contains four order sets, obviously the name's going to get pretty darn long, but and it's not a problem. Yeah, at least not with Windows 64-bit anymore, as we can see here. Yeah, some of these file names get really long. Look at that one there. Geez, there we go. Yeah, that's a long file name. So yeah, so you don't really have to worry about the length of the file name. Um, yeah, bunch of long ones there. But obviously that provides a lot of information. Um, the longer the file name, the more information you can provide yourself when you're trying to read this later. Like for example, this one. All right, so this Bloodhound file, so I know when it was done. It was done back in December of 2020. It uses this Bloodhound file. So this is the, let's see. Sorry, there we go. So that is the Bloodhound file that's providing signals into Blackbird. And then I think, that would be the logic template. Yeah, so the Bloodhound file, and then which logic template from that workshop is being used. And then I have my entry orders, and then I have my different profit targets, and it looks like there's only one, and the stop loss. Yeah, so it looks like this only has one order set because there's only one profit target in there and only one stop loss as well. Yep. So there you go. So that file name gave me a ton of information about that. So Yeah, here we go. So on this Blackbird file, right, there's my profit target. And I think this has, I think this might have 3 profit targets. I guess I didn't do that good of a name, that good at naming it, but I think it has that first profit target, and then I think that might be the second profit target, and that's the third profit target. So, yeah. So, all right. In any case, I think I kind of beat that question to death. So, all right, guys. So let's see where we're at. All right, we made it. We made it past the 1.5 hour mark. So I guess not too bad for Bloodhound Workshop. A little bit short. Typically, these workshops will go 2 hours. So let me, make a call out again, gentlemen, for anybody that might have a Bloodhound question. Let me know. And yeah. Let's see. Oh, let's see what else Doug has here. Yeah, configuration management for streaming software. True. Right. Um, yeah. So, here's probably something even more important for yourself. This always kind of slipped my mind because nobody really ever asks about it. Which is, let's open up Bloodhound. There. And remember, you have the text object. So you can put on, and there we go. There. Let's put that in there. And yeah, there we go. So you can use this and write yourself notes, right? Write yourself little edit notes. So, and just put in there whatever you want, whatever is helpful. Put in a date, what you modified, and that's probably the best way to track changes to each iteration. Is just use this, right? And I'm sure that probably what you're doing is you're modifying it, and then you're modifying it. Well, actually, when you're done with your whatever changes you want, when you're done with it, you'll save it. And then if you're going to make a modification, then you'll go and do a save as, right? And change the file name, increment the file name. And while you're doing that, you can, right, you're keeping this, obviously you're keeping all these nodes and you're keeping this text object. So after a while, you'll have this long running, edits, note taking that you're doing, with each modification here. So you could put the file name in there, and then when you do a save as and you change the iteration, again at the bottom you can put the file name giving you the iteration, or however you want to do it, right? So on and so forth. Yeah. So there you go. that right there is probably even better than saving out different, well, I'd say actually that's half as important, at least. Maybe 60-40 of writing yourself notes, 60%, saving out different file versions, 40%. So, you know. Yeah, so for example, these playbook systems here, if there's a video, you know, they all have notes in them this time. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a screenshot anywhere. No, I don't see a screenshot anywhere. Yeah, I don't see any screenshots, but in any case, yeah, these news systems here, they all have notes in them. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yep. Yep. That's definitely, yeah, writing yourself notes like that to track each change. And of course, you can add comments to yourself. Yeah, just as importantly, you know, you can write little notes such as, you know, there you go, little comments to yourself, about whatever kind of results you got as well. You know, of course, obviously, you'd want to be a little more specific there with what the change was and stuff like that. But little side notes after your change. Obviously, whatever it is that you want to track there. So, yeah. All right. Well, yeah. I'll clear that out of there. And yeah, let's clear that. Clear that. There. There. All right. Well, gentlemen, I haven't seen any actual Bloodhound building questions here in a while. So I'm going to start the timer here. I'll give everybody, about 10 minutes or so just to make sure, just see if there's any other questions you might come up with. All right. So again, I'm going to start the timer here for 10 minutes. And as long as questions keep coming in, the workshop will remain open to get everybody's questions answered. But if I don't see any more questions in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to assume that we are done for the day and we'll wrap it up. All right. So while I'm waiting for the next Bloodhound question to come in, I'm just going to mute my microphone there. Yeah. And yeah. All right. You're welcome, Charles. Yeah. Have a good rest of your day, and I'm guessing I'll probably see you tomorrow. So, yeah. All right, guys. Let's see here. I have about 5 more minutes to get some more questions in here before I wrap it up. All right, so 5 more minutes. Yeah. And while I'm just waiting here, guys, just remind you, if you do have questions that you want answered in these workshops, you know, you can always email them in to support there. It does help me if you try and email them in at least the day before, so I have a chance to read through it and make sure I have all the information I need to answer the question. So I know, a lot of times I get an email literally an hour before the workshop, and sometimes I have enough time to get to it and email back, with clarification. But if you can, try and email your questions in as soon as possible. It's always helpful. So, and of course, if you have Blackbird questions for tomorrow, you can always email that in. But you guys all know the drill, so I'm preaching to the choir again. Although there are actually a couple of new people here in the room, so not everybody's a part of the choir quite yet. Yeah, so for the new people here, yeah, just remember, you can always email questions in. And the big advantage with emailing in, right, is you can take a screenshot of your chart and, more importantly, mark it up, right? So you can put text notes to help explain your idea there. Another mental side note here is every once in a while we'll get a screenshot of just a chart and it tells us nothing. So just screenshotting your chart without notations on it does not help one bit. So we have no idea where we're looking on that chart. Like, for example, we'll get, someone expand their chart full screen, take a screenshot, and we have no idea where we're supposed to be looking on the chart. They'll squeeze their chart up like that, but we have no clue where we're supposed to be looking on the chart. So please take the time and, point things out and add a text note. Let's see here. Yeah, NinjaTrader does have text. There we go. Actually, I don't want to buy there, do I? I'd want to sell there. There we go. Something like that, right? I think you guys get the point. Mark up your charts. It does, so that way we know exactly where we're looking, right? You can do something like that. Boom, right? Put a little arrow, whatever it is. We do, this is basically mandatory to help explain to somebody else what you're trying to do. Yeah, so that's clearly a big advantage when you're emailing a question in. As the saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So that means, you don't have to go to great lengths to write down what the idea is that you're trying to do. You can use a chart, with some text to help explain your idea, and it becomes crystal clear. So when you do that, or it becomes a lot clearer to somebody else, right? When you send them a screenshot of a chart, showing where the buys and sells are and stuff. So, yeah. So, all right. Okay, guys, another minute, and if I don't see any more questions for Bloodhound in the next minute or two, then I'll wrap it up. So. All right, RJ. Good seeing you in the room again. Hope things are going well. And yeah, throw me some interesting questions for Bloodhound every once in a while if you can. So yeah. All right, gentlemen, I'm gonna call it here. Yeah, I think we're kind of wrapping up. I think we're all out of questions for today. So with that, let's wrap it up here, and I'll see you guys around next time. All right. So if I don't see you tomorrow, then hopefully I'll see you again next week. All right, good. RJ is gonna be there tomorrow. All right, hopefully you got some Blackbird questions for me. Good, good, good. Okay, guys, I'm going to close up shop here, and I'll see you next time. All right.